Matthew Hulbert is a Lib Dem activist, but park that for 1 second. He's also a campaigner for a better NHS. Are the two interlinked, Matthew? I'm not sure. I suppose they are to a degree.
No, I mean, I'm not really talking in a party political capacity today.
No, I get that. No, I understand that. I would never, ever ask you about Ed Davies' views on paramedics. Listen, in terms of getting things done, I mean, I mentioned Wes Streeting there, Matthew. We've spoken before on this issue. That's one thing. Saying it, intending it, wanting it, we all want it. Actually doing it, of course, are two very different things.
They're two very different things. I mean, just to explain to you and your listeners very briefly about why I campaign on this issue. So, July 2022, my mum fell at home, my 78-year-old frail mum. We got to her. We called for an ambulance at 5:01 a.m. and 11 hours later, an ambulance got to her and she was taken to hospital and she died 2 days later after an infection turned to sepsis. And some of your viewers and listeners may be saying, why didn't you take her? Well, the reason was that because she'd very badly hurt her ribs, and we were advised, and no doubt quite rightly, that we shouldn't try and move her. Yeah. But then you're left in a situation where you are waiting for this ambulance.
That's the problem, isn't it? If you thought that was the best thing to do, then you would have done it. But the advice is always, don't move a patient, particularly someone who's a little elderly, because that could cause more damage than the current state of affairs. We learned that from being a kid almost.
Absolutely, Ian. And so we were left in this situation where my mum was in great pain. Yes, she was breathing, so I appreciate she wasn't an absolute emergency, of course not. But she was 78 years old, she was frail, she was in pain, she was distressed, she was asking me when help was going to come. And all I could do every few hours was call 999 again and say, my mum is still on her bedroom floor in a very, undignified situation, in pain, distressed. When is an ambulance coming? And as I say, it was only after 11 hours that it came. And I've got to think that must have contributed to her death 2 days later, I would have thought.
Yeah, well, I keep hearing stories like this, that, had a patient been in there sooner, either they might have survived or certainly their injury or illness would not have got to the stage that it did. What is the answer, Matthew? I mean, I know you're not speaking in a Lib Dem capacity, but every leader, your own leader, Wes Streeting and Keir Starmer for Labour, the Tory, I've forgotten who the Tory health person is these days. Is it still Jeremy Hunt? No, it's not even Jeremy Hunt, is it? He was a chancellor. It's so easy to forget. That's politics for you, isn't it? So forget who these people are.
I think it's actually a Leicestershire MP, actually, locally to me. I think it's Edward Argar, actually.
OK, Edward Argar, there you go. He's the Conservative Health Secretary, spokesman. But everybody agrees we need to solve the problem, but nobody has come out with this. I know it's not a magic wand, but something where us as punters can go, wow, there's the answer over there. But we don't even seem to be in that territory.
Well, all I can say to you is that, as I think you know from our previous conversation, Ian, I campaign now with a group called Just Treatment. And our view is, and I appreciate this may be counter to the view perhaps of some of your viewers and listeners, but our view is that actually I'm afraid it takes more funding into the NHS. And I know that people will say it already gets multi-millions, but my response to that would be, yes, it does, but we're talking here about an NHS which has to serve an increasingly elderly population, a population where people are living longer, and I'm afraid that will mean more cash. Actually, the English NHS doesn't get anywhere near the European average of money spent on health services. So whilst it's not just money, of course it has to be reformed, and Wes Streeting is quite right about that. I'm afraid the harsh reality is, Ian, certainly from our point of view, that it will need considerably more investment to get the NHS to where we need it to be.
There it is, more money. Sadly, that, I think, is the answer most people ultimately really knew. Matthew, thank you for your time. We will speak again. Matthew Hulbert is a campaigner for a better NHS.